The execution chamber smelled like copper and ozone. Kayla stood between two Verithy guards, their crimson armor reflecting the cold light from overhead panels, and tried not to think about the blade they would use. Her wrists were bound with energy cuffs that hummed against her skin. The tribunal had been swift. 3 cycles for killing a Verithy merchant in self-defense. They didn't care that he'd tried to claim her ship. They didn't care that human law meant nothing in the outer reach. She was property now, sentenced to servitude until death under the bonding edict, an ancient punishment reserved for those who shed noble blood. The doors opened. A human walked in. Kayla's breath caught. She'd expected another Verithy master, maybe a Krell overseer with too many eyes and hands that lingered. Not this. Not one of her own. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with scars along his jaw and hands that looked like they'd built worlds and torn them down again. His eyes were gray, cold as vacuum, and when they settled on her, she felt the weight of something she couldn't name. He wore simple clothes, nothing ceremonial, but the guard stepped back when he approached. That told her everything. "This is the one?" His voice was low, rough. "Yes, Commander Torin." The lead guard's translation implant crackled. "The human female, convicted of murder. She is yours until her debt is paid or she dies. The edict is absolute." Torin circled her slowly. Kayla kept her chin up, refusing to look away. She'd survived 6 months in a Verithy holding cell. She'd watched 3 other prisoners lose their minds. She wouldn't break now. Not for him, not for anyone. "What's your name?" he asked. "Kayla Voss." "Why'd you kill him?" "He was going to kill me first." Torn stopped in front of her. "That's not what the tribunal said." Taylor Rand stopped in front of her. "That's not what the tribunal said." Not anger. He turned to the guards. "Release the cuffs. Commander, protocol requires. Release them." The energy cuffs deactivated and fell to the floor. Kayla rubbed her wrists, watching him, trying to understand. This wasn't mercy. Mercy didn't exist in places like this. This was something calculated. "You're coming with me," Torin said. "Keep up." He walked out without looking back. Kayla followed because there was nowhere else to go. The guards didn't stop her. Outside the chamber, the station opened into a massive corridor lined with viewports, showing the void beyond. Ships drifted past, some human, most not. This was Threshold Station, the last stop before the deep reach, where laws bent and broke depending on who held the most guns. Torin led her through 3 security checkpoints without saying a word. Guards nodded to him. A Krell merchant moved out of his way. Whatever he was, he had power here. Real power. They reached a transport platform and boarded a small shuttle. It's still silent. Kayla sat across from him, studying his face for clues. His expression gave nothing away. "Where are we going?" she finally asked. "My ship." "And then?" "Then you work off your debt. Doing what?" "Whatever I tell you." Sakastad had no problem happen to me. Kayla's hands tightened into fists. "If you think I'm going to... You killed someone. Doesn't matter why. Doesn't matter that he deserved it. You're alive because I bought your contract. That means you belong to me until the edict says otherwise. You don't have choices anymore."
"You have orders. Understand?"
Every instinct screamed at her to fight, but she'd learned something in that cell, something about survival. Sometimes you waited, sometimes you watched. Sometimes you let the enemy think they'd won until you found the crack in their armor. "I understand," she said. The shuttle docked with a ship 3 times larger than anything Kayla had seen in civilian space. It was sleek, black, covered in weapon arrays that could crack a planet's crust. Military, but no markings. No flags. Whatever Torin commanded, it wasn't part of any official fleet. Inside, the corridors were clean, efficient, filled with crew members who moved with purpose. Human, mostly, but she spotted a few others. A Talaran engineer. A Vex pilot. They all nodded to Torin as he passed. He led her deep into the ship, down a corridor that ended at a single door. It opened to reveal quarters. Spartan. A bed, a desk, a viewport showing stars. "This is yours," Torin said. "Lock works from the inside. No one enters without your permission." "What's the catch?" "No catch. You're not a prisoner here. You're crew. You said so yourself. On paper. On this ship, you pull your weight, you get respect. Betray me, and I'll space you myself. Simple terms." He started to leave, then stopped at the door. Mess hall is 2 decks down. Shift assignment start at 0600. Get some sleep. The door closed behind him. Kayla stood alone in the room, her mind racing. This didn't make sense. None of it made sense. She'd been sentenced to servitude, bought by a human commander with no official allegiance, and now she had her own quarters with a lock. She moved to the viewport and pressed her palm against the glass. The stars blurred past, cold and distant. Somewhere out there, her husband's ship still drifted in the graveyard where the Virathi had ambushed them. Somewhere out there, his body was frozen among the wreckage. She'd spent 3 years trying to survive alone after that. 3 years running cargo, dodging pirates, staying one step ahead of the empires that wanted to grind humanity into dust, and now this. She didn't trust Torin, didn't trust this ship or its crew or the sudden mercy of a locked door, but she was alive. For now, that was enough. She lay down on the bed, staring at the ceiling, and tried to remember the last time she'd felt safe. The memory wouldn't come. Maybe it never would again. Outside her door, footsteps echoed in the corridor. Voices spoke in low tones. The ship hummed around her, a living thing carrying her towards something she couldn't see. Kayla closed her eyes and forced herself to breathe. Survival first, answers later. That was the rule. That was all she had left. Morning came too fast. Kayla woke to an alert chime and found a standard crew uniform laid out on the desk. Black, simple, with no rank insignia. She dressed quickly and found her way to the mess hall. I was already full. Crew members sat in clusters, eating, talking, some checking data pads while they ate. A few glanced at her. Most ignored her. She grabbed a tray of something that looked like protein paste and reconstituted vegetables, found an empty corner, and sat. You're the new one. A woman stood there, maybe 40, with graying hair tied back and eyes that had seen too much. She wore an engineering officer's patch on her uniform. Kayla, she said. Reyna. Chief engineer. Mind if I sit? Reyna sat down with her own tray, eating with the efficiency of someone who'd learned to take meals when she could. Torin doesn't usually buy contracts, Reyna said. You must be special. I killed a Virathi merchant. Self-defense? Does it matter? Reyna shrugged. Not to me. Half the crew here has blood on their hands. Other half is running from something. Torin doesn't ask questions as long as you do your job. What is the job exactly? Sometimes we run cargo. Sometimes we escort transports through hostile zones. Sometimes we do things the Coalition can't officially sanction but desperately needs done. Mercenaries. Survivors. Reyna took a long drink of something dark and bitter. The galaxy's not kind to humans. You know that. We're still fighting for every inch of space we hold. The Virathi want us contained. The Crow want us gone. The Ascendancy thinks we're too dangerous to leave alone. Torin gives us a chance to fight back on our own terms. They didn't look like soldiers. They looked like people who'd lost everything and found something worth dying for anyway. What's my assignment? She asked. You'll find out soon enough. Torin likes to test new crew, see what they're made of. As if summoned by his name, Torin entered the mess hall. The noise didn't drop, but the atmosphere shifted. People sat a little straighter. He moved through the room with purpose, stopping at Kayla's table. Finish eating, he said. Then report to the bridge. He left before she could respond. Reyna smiled. Told you. Good luck. The bridge was smaller than Kayla expected, efficient rather than grand. View screens showed tactical displays, navigation charts, ship status. A Vex pilot sat at the helm, 4 arms moving across controls with inhuman precision. Torin stood at the center, hands clasped behind his back, watching the void ahead. Kayla Voss, he said without turning. Former cargo runner. Husband died in a Virathi ambush 3 years ago. You've been operating alone since then, running the outer reach, taking jobs no one else would touch. You're stubborn, resourceful, and you don't quit. That about right? Kayla's throat tightened. You did your homework. I don't buy contracts blind. He turned to face her. I need to know if you can follow orders. Real orders. Not the kind that come with explanations or justifications. Can you do that? Wrong answer. His voice stayed level, but there was steel underneath. This ship runs on trust. I trust my crew to do what needs doing, even when it's hard. Even when it doesn't make sense in the moment. If you can't give me that, you're no use here. I didn't survive 3 years alone by following blind orders. No, you survived by being smart and lucky. But luck runs out, and smart only goes so far when you're facing down a Virithi dreadnought with guns that can turn this ship into dust. I need people who trust the plan even when they can't see the whole picture. Then why buy my contract? Why not leave me to die? When he spoke, his voice was quieter. Because I've read your record. Every run you took, every cargo you delivered, you kept your word. Even when it cost you. Even when breaking it would have been easier. That's rare. That's valuable. I kept my word to my husband. Promised him I'd make it back every time. Broke that promise when he died. He broke his first. He promised to come back too. Kayla looked away, blinking hard. Torrens stepped closer, his voice softening just slightly. I'm not asking you to forget him. I'm asking you to trust that what we do here matters. We're holding a line most people don't even know exists. Without us, humanity loses ground every day. I need you on that line. What do you want me to do right now? Learn the ship. Learn the crew. Learn how we operate. When the time comes, I'll give you an assignment. Until then, observe. He returned to watching the view screen. Kayla stood there, uncertain, then made herself move. She spent the rest of the day walking corridors, watching crew members work, asking questions when it seemed appropriate. The ship was called the Resolute. No registry, no official designation, just a name. The crew numbered 43. Most were human, but the others had their own stories. The Vex pilot, Kess, had been exiled from the collective for refusing to execute human prisoners. The Talaran engineer, Mavic, had lost his family to a Krell raiding party and found purpose here. Everyone had scars. Everyone had reasons. By evening, Kayla's head ached from information overload. She returned to her quarters, locked the door, and sat on the bed. Her hands were shaking. She didn't know why. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the weight of being alive when she'd expected to die. Maybe it was the way Torren had looked at her, like he saw something worth saving. A soft chime at her door. She opened it cautiously. Torren stood there, holding a small box. Thought you might want this, he said, handing it to her. Inside was a data chip. Her hands trembled as she recognized it. How did you... Their wedding, their first ship together. Moments she thought were lost forever. Kayla couldn't speak. Torren nodded once and turned to leave. Why? She managed. Because some things are worth keeping, even when everything else is gone. He walked away, leaving her standing in the doorway with the box clutched to her chest. For the first time since the tribunal, Kayla felt something other than numb survival. She felt the faint, fragile edge of hope. The next morning, everything changed. Kayla was in engineering with Reyna, learning system layouts, when alarms screamed through the ship. Red lights flashed. Torren's voice came over the comm. All hands, battle stations, variety interceptor on approach. This is not a drill. Kayla's heart hammered. Reyna was already moving, sealing bulkheads, rerouting power to weapons and shields. Stay with me, she barked. Do exactly what I say. The ship shuddered as the interceptor opened fire. Kayla grabbed a support beam to steady herself. Through the engineering bay's viewport, she saw the sleek Virithi vessel bearing down on them, energy weapons flashing. The Resolute returned fire, railguns thundering. Reyna shouted commands to her team, hands flying over controls. More power to forward shields. Divert from life support if you have to. Sparks erupted from a control panel. Kayla ran to it without thinking, pulling the emergency shutoff before the fire could spread. Reyna glanced at her, surprised, then nodded approval. Good instincts. Help Mavic with the coolant systems. We're running hot. Kaela worked alongside the Talaran engineer, following his rapid-fire instructions, keeping the systems from overloading while the battle raged around them. The ship twisted and dove, Kess at the helm performing maneuvers that should have been impossible for a vessel this size. Torren's voice stayed calm over the comm, calling targets, directing fire. The Virithi interceptor was fast, but the Resolute was relentless. After what felt like hours but was probably minutes, a final salvo struck home. The interceptor's engines exploded, sending it spinning into the void. Silence. Then Torren's voice. Stand down from battle station's damage report. Reyna exhaled slowly. Engineering's intact. Minor fires, nothing critical, were operational. Good work. All departments same. Kyla leaned against the bulkhead, adrenaline still flooding her system. Reyna clapped her on the shoulder. Not bad for your first engagement. Most new crew freeze up. Huh, I've been shot at before. Not like this. Kayla looked at the team around her, everyone working together with practiced efficiency, and realized something. This was what Torin had meant about trust. When the shooting started, there was no time for questions. You acted, you trusted the person next to you, or you died. Simple as that. She found Torin on the bridge an hour later, reviewing combat logs. He looked up when she approached. "You did well," he said. "I followed orders. You did more than that. Reyna says you kept coolant systems stable when half her team was dealing with fires. That's thinking on your feet. The Virathi, they were hunting us specifically? We've made enemies. Comes with the territory. This is what you do. Fight battles no one else will. Someone has to." Torin turned back to his screens. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we hit a supply station. You'll come with me. Time to see how you handled negotiations." Kyla wanted to ask more, but she recognized a dismissal. She left the bridge, her mind churning. This ship, this crew, this strange commander who'd bought her contract and given her purpose, it was more than survival now. It was something bigger. Something that might actually matter. And for the first time since her husband died, Kayla felt like she belonged somewhere. Even if that somewhere was a ship full of outcasts fighting an endless war at the edge of known space, the supply station was a floating market, a chaotic sprawl of modules and platforms where dozens of species bartered, traded, and occasionally killed each other. Kayla walked beside Torin through the crowds, trying to look alert without appearing threatening. He moved like a predator, drawing glances from merchants and thieves alike. They reached a quieter section where a Krell trader waited behind stacks of weapons crates. "Commander," the Krell clicked, his translator rendering it in flat tones. "You're late. Had some trouble on the way. You have the merchandise. 50 plasma charges, 20 EMP mines. As requested." Torin inspected the crates personally, checking serial numbers, testing seals. Kayla watched the crowds, her hand resting on the stunner Torin had given her. Movement caught her eye. 3 Virathi watching from across the market. Not merchants, soldiers, and they were looking directly at Torin. "We have a problem," she said quietly. Torin didn't turn. "How many?" 3. Virathi military. 10 o'clock. Stay calm. Finish the inspection. The Virathi started moving through the crowd. Kayla's pulse quickened. Torin sealed the last crate and transferred payment to the Krell. "Get these to my ship. Standard delivery." "Of course, Commander." The Virathi blocked their path. The leader, taller than the others, with decorative scars along his crest, spoke in perfect standard. "Commander Torin, the High Fleet has questions about your recent activities." "I don't answer to the High Fleet." "You killed one of our interceptors yesterday, after it fired on my ship." "Self-defense." "That vessel was on a sanctioned patrol. Your presence in that sector was illegal." "This is neutral territory. You have no authority here. We have authority wherever we claim it." The Virathi's hand moved to his weapon. Around them, the market grew quieter. People were backing away, sensing violence. "You will come with us for questioning." "No." The word hung in the air. The Virathi leader's eyes narrowed. "You dare refuse? I dare a lot of things. Leaves always get me in trouble." Torin's hand rested casually on his sidearm. "But here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk away. Tell your commanders you didn't find me, and we'll all live to see tomorrow." "You're outnumbered, human." "Not really. Movement throughout the market." Kayla saw them now. Crew from the Resolute, positioned at strategic points, weapons hidden but ready. Reyna near a stall selling power cells. Cass by a viewport, Mavic behind a support column. At least a dozen others. The Virathi saw them too. His hand moved away from his weapon. "This isn't over," he said. "It never is." The Virathi left. The market slowly returned to normal. Torin waited until they were back on the shuttle before speaking. "Good eyes. You spotted them early. I've spent 3 years watching my back. Keep doing it. The Virathi won't forget this. They'll come again." "Why do they hate you so much?" Torin was quiet for a long moment. "Because I remind them that humans don't break easily. And that scares them more than any weapon." Back on the Resolute, Kayla found herself thinking about those words. The galaxy was vast, filled with species that had explored stars while humans still lived in caves. The Virathi, the Krell, the Ascendancy, they all saw humanity as young, weak, barely worth noticing except as a potential threat to contain. But people like Torin, like this crew, they proved something different. They proved humanity could survive, could thrive in the margins, fight back against impossible odds, and refuse to bow. That night, Kayla stood at her viewport watching stars blur past. Her husband's face looked back at her from the photo on her desk. She picked it up, studying his smile, remembering the sound of his laugh. "I think I found something," she whispered to the image. "I think I found a reason to keep going." "You'd like them. They're stubborn as hell. Just like you." Outside, the void stretched endless and cold. But inside this ship, surrounded by people who'd chosen to fight rather than surrender, Kayla felt warm for the first time in years. Tomorrow would bring new dangers, new battles, new scars. But tonight, she was part of something. And that was enough. The days blurred into weeks. Kayla learned the rhythms of the Resolute, the patterns of its missions, the unspoken rules of its crew. She ran cargo escorts through pirate territories, helped defend human colonies from Krell raiders, participated in strikes against Virathi supply lines. Each mission brought her closer to the crew, built trust through shared danger. Reyna taught her advanced engineering. Kes showed her piloting techniques no human academy would teach. Mavic shared Talaran combat forms that emphasized speed over strength. And Torin watched it all, saying little, but she felt his approval in the assignments he gave her, the responsibilities he trusted her with. Then came the message that changed everything. Kayla was in her quarters reviewing supply manifests when Torin's voice came over her personal comm. "My office? Now." His expression was harder than usual, tighter. "We have a problem," he said. "The Virathi High Fleet is moving a dreadnought into the Kestrel sector. Intelligence suggests they're planning to glass the human colonies there." Kyla's blood ran cold. How many people? 3 worlds. All established within the last decade, barely defended. The Coalition won't intervene. Too far from established supply lines, not strategically important enough. The colonists are on their own. So we're going to help them. We're going to try. Torin manipulated the display, showing fleet positions. The dreadnought is being escorted by 4 cruisers and a dozen interceptors. Even if we had 10 ships like the Resolute, we couldn't take them in direct combat. Then what's the plan? He looked at her and she saw something in his eyes she hadn't seen before. Uncertainty. The dreadnought has a weakness. It's old, from the last cycle of their expansion. Shield generators are vulnerable to sustained EMP bursts. If we can get close enough, hit them with everything we have, we might disable their weapons long enough for the colonists to evacuate. We'd have to get past their escort, breach their defensive perimeter, and deliver the payload before they blast us into atoms. Probability of success is maybe 20%. Kayla absorbed this. And if we don't try? 40,000 people die. She thought about her husband, about the colony ship they'd planned to join before the Virathi killed him, about all the dreams that died in the void. When do we leave? I'm telling you because you have a choice. Your contract is technically fulfilled. The Tribunal's debt is paid as of last week. You're free to leave if you want. The words hung between them. Free. She could walk away, find a transport, start over somewhere safe, live the quiet life she and her husband had dreamed of. Or she could stay. Fight. Maybe die for people she'd never meet. I'm staying, she said. Torin nodded slowly. I hoped you would. Get to engineering. Help Reyna prep the EMP mines. We're going to need every one of them working perfectly. Kayla worked through the night alongside Reyna and Mavic, checking circuits, calibrating yields, ensuring every mine would detonate exactly when needed. The crew moved with grim purpose around her. Everyone knew the odds. Everyone came anyway. At 0500, Torin called all hands to the cargo bay. 43 people stood in loose formation, waiting. He looked at each of them, his gaze lingering. You know what we're facing, he said. You know the odds. I won't lie to you. We might all die today, but if we don't try, 40,000 people definitely will. They're colonists, farmers, teachers, kids who've never seen Earth but call themselves human anyway. They deserve a chance. We're going to give it to them. He paused. Anyone who wants to leave? Do it now. No judgment. No questions. Torin smiled faintly. To your stations, and if this goes sideways, it's been an honor serving with you. The journey to the Kestrel sector took 6 hours at maximum burn. Kayla spent it in engineering, double-checking systems, trying not to think about what was coming. Reyna worked beside her in silence, but eventually spoke. You didn't have to stay. Yes, I did. You don't owe us anything. My husband died trying to protect a transport full of colonists from Virathi raiders. He bought them time to escape. I used to think he died for nothing, but now I understand. He died so they could live. That mattered. This matters. Reyna gripped her shoulder. He'd be proud of you. They dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kestrel sector. The view screen showed the Virathi dreadnought hanging in space like a metal leviathan, its escorts arranged in defensive formation. Torn's voice came over the comm, steady as stone. "All stations combat ready. Kess, take us in." Fast and low. Don't give them time to target us. The Resolute dove toward the enemy fleet, engines screaming, energy weapons lit up the void. The ship shook as impacts hammered shields. Kayla held on, watching power levels fluctuate wildly. "Shields at 60%, Reyna called out. 50? 40, reroute from non-essentials, Mavic's translator barked. Kess piloted like a demon, weaving through weapons fire, using the cruisers as cover when possible. An interceptor exploded off their port side, another vectored in from above. The Resolute's guns tore it apart. They were close now, close enough to see the Dreadnought's massive gun ports cycling open. Now. Torrens' command rang out. The cargo bay doors opened. EMP mines launched in sequence, propelled by magnetic accelerators toward the Dreadnought's shield generators. The Virathi noticed too late. Their point defense systems activated, destroying 3 mines, 4, but the rest made it through. They detonated in a cascading wave of electromagnetic energy that washed over the Dreadnought like a tsunami. Lights flickered. Shields collapsed. For exactly 12 seconds, the massive vessel was vulnerable. "Fire everything," Torren shouted. The Resolute's railguns poured destruction into the Dreadnought's weapon systems, targeting the massive main guns, the missile batteries, everything that could rain death on the colonies below. Metal vaporized. Explosions rippled across the hull. Then the Dreadnought's backup systems engaged. Shields flickered back online. The massive ship began to turn, bringing its remaining weapons to bear. "Get us out of here," Torren ordered. Kess sent the Resolute into a wild spiral, dodging fire from the cruisers and the Dreadnought's secondary guns. An energy beam clipped their stern. The ship lurched violently. Kayla slammed into a bulkhead, tasting blood. Reyna was screaming commands, trying to keep the engines from tearing themselves apart. Another hit. Engineering bay lights went dark, replaced by emergency red. Kayla pulled herself up, her vision swimming. Through the viewport, she saw the Dreadnought's main gun swiveling toward them, charging for a killing shot. Then something impossible happened. The Dreadnought's gun exploded from within. Secondary detonations rippled through its hull as chain reactions consumed entire sections. The Virathi escorts broke formation, trying to protect their flagship. It gave the Resolute just enough time to break free, limping away at maximum burn while the Dreadnought listed helplessly in space. On the colonies below, evacuation ships launched by the hundreds, fleeing to safety while the Viathri fleet struggled to reorganize. Torren's voice came over the comm, hoarse but triumphant. "We did it. They're getting out." The bridge erupted in ragged cheers. Kayla slumped against the bulkhead, laughing and crying at the same time. They'd done it. Against impossible odds, they'd actually done it. Reyna hugged her, then Mavic, then half the engineering crew. In that moment, covered in blood and soot, surrounded by people who'd risked everything for strangers, Kayla finally understood what her husband had felt in his last moments. Not fear, not regret. The knowledge that some things were worth dying for. But they hadn't died. They'd survived. And as the Resolute limped toward a safe harbor, Kayla realized she'd found something she thought was gone forever. A reason to fight. A reason to live. A family forged in fire and void. The Resolute docked at a hidden repair facility, a hollowed-out asteroid that served as a haven for ships that couldn't risk official ports. The crew worked around the clock to patch the damage, repair systems, honor the 2 people they'd lost when that energy beam had clipped the stern. Kayla attended the memorial service, watching as Torren spoke about the fallen with quiet respect, promising their sacrifice hadn't been in vain. That night, exhausted and aching, Kayla returned to her quarters to find a message waiting. Official channels encrypted. Her heart sank when she saw the sender, Virathi High Command. She opened it with shaking hands. The text was brief, cold. Kayla Voss. Your contract debt has been reviewed. Due to recent actions against Virathi interests, your sentence is hereby extended indefinitely. You are to be surrendered to our custody immediately or face collective punishment against all known associates. Somehow, they'd identified her, connected her to the attack on the Dreadnought, and now they wanted revenge. Kayla sat down slowly, staring at the words. If she didn't surrender, they'd come after the crew, after Torren, after everyone she'd come to care about. If she did surrender, they'd execute her, maybe torture her first. Either way, she was dead. The door chimed. Torin entered without waiting for permission, holding a datapad. He saw her face and went still. You got the message? How did you know? They sent me one too. Demanding I hand you over within 48 hours or they'll declare the Resolute a priority target for all Virathi forces. He sat down across from her. I'm not giving you up. You have to. I won't let them destroy this crew because of me. That's not your choice to make, Torin. Listen to me. His voice was hard. The Virathi don't get to decide who lives on my ship. They don't get to threaten my crew and expect me to fold. We've been on their target list for years. This changes nothing. It changes everything. Before, they wanted you dead. Now they need me specifically. If I'm gone, maybe they'll back off. They won't. You know they won't. This is just an excuse to eliminate us and save face. They've hated what we represent from the beginning. Humans who won't be controlled, who fight back.
When?
He leaned forward. You're part of this crew now. That means we protect you. Same as anyone else. I can't let you die for me. Then don't. Help us fight. Help us survive. That's all I'm asking. Before she could respond, alarms screamed through the ship. Torin was on his feet instantly, activating his comm. Report! Kess's voice crackled back, tense. Virati's battle group just dropped out of FTL. 6 cruisers, 2 dreadnoughts, at least 20 interceptors. They've found us. Impossible. The facility's location was a secret, hidden in a debris field that scrambled sensors, unless someone had betrayed them, or unless the Virathi had tracked the Resolute's damaged systems, followed the trail of leaking radiation and debris. Torin's jaw tightened. All crew, battle stations. Get the civilians to escape pods. Prepare to evacuate the facility. He looked at Kayla. Last chance. You want to surrender? Save these people? I won't stop you. She thought about the crew, about Reyna and Kess and Mavic and all the others who had become family. She thought about the 40,000 colonists who were alive because people like Torin refused to give up. And she made her choice. I'm staying. Let's make them regret coming here. Torin smiled, fierce and proud. That's my girl. Let's move. The facility erupted into controlled chaos. Ships undocked, some fleeing, some preparing to fight. The Resolute's weapons came online despite the damage, despite the repairs that weren't finished. Kayla sprinted to engineering, helping Reyna coax power from systems that should have been offline. Through the viewports, she saw the Virathi fleet approaching in perfect formation, weapons charging, confident in their overwhelming superiority. They're hailing us, Kess reported. Audio only. Put it through, Torin said. A Virathi voice filled the comm, translated into flat, emotionless standard. Commander Torin, surrender the human female Kayla Voss immediately, and we will consider allowing your crew to evacuate before we destroy your vessel. Turn around and leave before we embarrass you again. Silence. Then, you are damaged, outnumbered, outgunned. This is not bravery. This is suicide. Maybe, but it's our choice. Something you never understood about humanity. We get to choose how we die. So be it. The void lit up with energy weapons and missiles. The facility's defense platforms returned fire, buying time for ships to escape. The Resolute dove into the chaos, guns blazing. Kayla held on as the ship bucked and rolled, watching power levels spike and crash. They were hemorrhaging energy, shields failing, but they kept fighting. Interceptors swarmed them. Kess destroyed. 2, 3, 4, but more kept coming. Shields down! Reyna shouted. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 7. Seal them, Torin commanded. Keep us in this fight. A dreadnought's main gun fired. The beam carved through space, missing the Resolute by meters, vaporizing an escape pod. Kayla's stomach turned. People were dying. Good people. Because the Virathi wanted her, she made a decision. Torin, she said over the comment, I'm taking a shuttle, leading them away. Stay at your station. If I'm what they want, I can draw them off. Give everyone time to escape. Kayla, you taught me about choices, remember? This is mine. She ran before he could stop her, sprinting through damaged corridors to the shuttle bay. Reyna's voice chased her over the comm. Kayla, don't do this! But she was already boarding a shuttle powering up engines. The bay doors opened, and she launched into the void, immediately broadcasting on all frequencies. This is Kayla Voss. I'm surrendering. Stop the attack. For a moment, nothing changed. Then 3 interceptors broke formation, vectoring toward her shuttle. The rest of the Virthi fleet continued their assault. They weren't going to stop. They'd never intended to stop. This was about eliminating the Resolute, not capturing her. Rage flooded through Kayla. She'd been so stupid. So naive. The Virthi had lied, used her guilt against her, and she'd fallen for it. Kayla, get back here. Torin's voice was raw. Now. Too fast. She couldn't outrun them. Couldn't fight them. This was it. She was going to die alone in a shuttle, and her sacrifice wouldn't even matter. Then something massive moved between her and the interceptors. The Resolute, battered and burning, positioned itself as a shield. Torin's voice came through, quieter now. I told you, we protect our own. The interceptors opened fire. The Resolute absorbed the hits, its already failing shields collapsing completely, hull plating vaporized. But Torin didn't move. He kept the ship between Kayla and death, giving her time to turn around, to race back toward the facility. Kayla's vision blurred with tears. Torin, move. Already was anyway. Make it count. The Resolute's guns fired one last time, destroying 2 interceptors. Then a cruiser's main battery struck home. The explosion was blinding. When Kayla's vision cleared, the Resolute was breaking apart, atmosphere venting, fires consuming what was left. Her scream tore from her throat, raw and broken. Torin, Reyna, Cass, Mavic, everyone. Gone. The 3rd interceptor came after her, weapons hot. Kayla didn't care anymore. Let them kill her. Let it end. But before it could fire, something else appeared. Ships. Dozens of them. Human ships, bearing coalition markings, dropping out of FTL in perfect formation.
The cavalry had arrived. How?
It didn't matter. Energy weapons lanced out, catching the Varathi fleet by surprise. The interceptor pursuing Kayla exploded. Around her, the tide of battle shifted. The Varathi fleet, suddenly facing a force of equal strength, began to withdraw. They'd miscalculated, thought this would be an easy slaughter. Instead, they were in a real fight. Kayla floated in her shuttle, numb, watching the coalition fleet tear into the Varathi. She didn't feel victorious. She felt empty. The comm crackled. Familiar voice, weak but alive. You there? Her heart stopped. Torin? We ejected before the core went. Crews scattered, but most of us made it. You okay? She laughed, a broken, sobbing sound. You bastard! I thought you were dead. Takes more than that. He coughed, and she heard pain in it. Coalition ships, I called them during the fight. Cashed in every favor I had. Figured if we were going down, might as well make it memorable. You called them for me. Called them for all of us. You're not special. But she could hear the smile in his voice. Well, maybe a little. The coalition fleet finished driving off the Varathi. Rescue ships began recovering survivors from the battle. Kayla guided her shuttle back to the facility, her hands shaking. She found Torin in a medical bay, being treated for burns and broken ribs. Reyna was there too, bruised but grinning. Kess, Mavic, others. Not everyone had made it. The memorial list would be long, but they'd survived. Against everything, they'd survived. Torin looked at her as she approached. Told you not to go. You didn't follow your own order either. Fair point. He winced as a medic worked on his ribs. You know they'll keep coming. The Varathi won't forget this. Let them come. We'll be ready. He studied her face, something softening in his expression. Yeah, we will. Weeks later, Kayla stood in a shipyard watching the construction of a new vessel. Not quite as large as the Resolute, but faster, meaner, built with all the lessons learned from the old ship. The crew had voted on a name. They'd chosen Defiant. Fitting, Kayla thought. Torin walked up beside her, still moving carefully but healing. The Coalition offered me an official commission, he said. Real rank, resources, support. We going to take it? Hell no. Can't fight my way if I'm tangled in bureaucracy. But they're willing to look the other way when we operate. Might even feed us intelligence now and then. He glanced at her. Question is, what are you going to do? Your contract really is fulfilled. You're free. Kayla looked at the ship taking shape before them, at the crew working together to build something new from the ashes of what they'd lost. She thought about her husband, About the promise she'd made to keep going, to find something worth living for. She'd found it. Here. With these people. With this impossible, stubborn man who'd bought her contract and given her a family. "I'm staying," she said, "if you'll have me." I was hoping you'd say that. "Welcome home, Kayla Voss." They stood together in silence, watching the Defiant take shape, ready for whatever came next. The galaxy was vast and hostile. Humanity was still outnumbered, outgunned, fighting for every inch. But they had something the empires didn't understand. They had each other. They had choice, and they had the stubborn, beautiful refusal to give up. That would have to be enough. Above them, stars burned in the endless void. And somewhere among them, Kayla's husband smiled, knowing she'd found her way home.